thank you. We're going to start the meeting, and to start it, I will read the following statement. This meeting is being held remotely and or in person as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 and all other applicable laws, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record the meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Is anyone recording the meeting? Hearing none. So we will start with our discussion of the Center for Active Living. Just a reminder, our plan here is to have 3 hearings on the article. Tonight, focusing on utilization and programming. We'll have another meeting to be scheduled for sources and uses of operating costs, and a final meeting discussing the building cost, adding in the context about thinking about other current or impending capital projects or other costs facing the town. Few comments, and then we'll invite a volunteer to kick off our discussion. I do ask that we run the comments through me, just to keep us organized, but having said that, I'm encouraging us all to address each other, respond to each other, and ask questions. I think we'll get a lot more if this is an interactive discussion. After we've completed our conversation, we will take comments from the public. I would ask you to note that we are going to hope to hear from some people that we haven't heard from before. So I respect and appreciate all the prior comments, and please don't be offended if you're not called on, but we really are trying to get a diversity of thoughts, and also to keep your comments to topic tonight, which is the programming and the utilization of the building. I'm going to start off by keeping it to 3 minutes for the comments. So please keep your comments brief. So moving on to ours is, first, thank you for everybody who has submitted the information for all of us to consider. And I thank all the members in advance for the time that you spent reviewing that information. I think it's going to make for a more robust conversation. I'm going to mention some of the things that we're going to be looking at, and next week working with someone from IT to get these documents on our website so you can we have a summary here of health-related issues in Hingham seniors that Brenda prepared, HCAL comps and an HCAL analysis, both prepared by Brian, evidence-based programming overview, and also utilization data and narrative, both coming from the building committee. The Center for Active Living Excel worksheet. We'll get into what that actually is that Mary provided us. Mass Council on Aging annual report. The schedule of the matrix that came from the building committee is part of the discussions on the programming. Some questions that Steve had posed and got responses to. Population projection by age group prepared by Mary, and programming and utilization prepared by Ness Carenti. And then 4 of the presentations that were done by the building committee, done by in coordination with P3, EDM Studio, and Lifespan Designs Studio. So I guess one comment I'll make at the beginning, I don't know if we're going to go there anymore, but I found all of the statistical information and analysis very thoughtful and very helpful. But do want to note to keep in mind that none of this that we're looking at considers residents from other towns. And I know that we have no way or I think we have no way of understanding what that impact is. But I would ask that at some point we just consider that, you know, what that might mean to the use of the building. So that was my setting it. I'll come back to my own comments later, but does somebody want to start us off? John,
Sure.
thank you.
No problem. I think the level of programming is in part determining the size of the building. And as it relates to the programming, I think we need to distinguish between wants and needs. I think to no one's surprise, I'm going to start with the media room. Are we able to pull up the 9925 EDM presentation?
Paula, can you make me
What are you?
I'm gonna have to sign in. We can, but just give me 1 second, please. I don't know if you want to.
I think it's better if everyone sees it.
Sure. Okay, just give me a minute. How about those Patriots? Hey, I think if you're ready. Yep, I'm ready. You can promote me. I did not get that.
Does you decline?
Well, that was a mistake. Let's do it again.
Sure.
I know. Just
Showing you logged in twice. I'm not sure.
okay.
Carol.
Oh, my bad. Okay, there you go.
There
Yep, sorry. Okay. There. Okay. And you are, I'm sorry, now can you give me 9/9 meeting?
99 meeting, page 35.
I'm gonna ask you if I can share. Okay. Okay. Trying to get it to a size that is helpful to you. Is that the right page, John?
Yeah, it is.
Does that work?
That works for me.
Okay, thank you.
But from the beginning, I feel like the media room is a want, not a need. And what I thought we would do is just walk through the programming. Two of the items listed here, Bridgewater Senior College and virtual classes, are also in the classroom. You looked at They're in both rooms. And it seems to me that those two could be satisfied in the classroom. Then we have lifelong learning, just education and lectures, movies, TED Talks, just discussed the virtual classes, theatrical or musical performances, author series, streaming concerts, open mic nights, comedy event, book club and readings, documentary series, and again, the Bridgewater Senior College, which is already being addressed in the classroom. And so it's my opinion that we could, or that the multi-purpose room in the classroom could really cover almost all of these. However, we have the things that maybe it cannot cover would be the movies and the streaming concerts. Are we building a theater? Should we be building a theater? I believe, you've got the multi-purpose room, you see all those activities. And if they want to keep all those activities, that's okay. Maybe instead of every week, it's every other week, so they can fit in lifelong learning or open mic or the book club readings. This is the third largest room. It's driving up the cost of the facility. And then there's another, you don't have to bring this one up. It's the one I had sent out with regards to the same room activity list provided by HCAL back in September. You had emailed it to everybody at 9/24. And so there were activities like rug hooking, ukulele, oriental rug. To me, are these essential? And we could go through, and I don't want to go through every room and do this, it would take too long. So I just think there's, if I wanted a big building, I would create a lot of activities. The other thing too that I would say is the multi-purpose room actually does have a screen. I don't know why they couldn't see a movie on the screen. In fact, according to page 25, currently in the current facility, they watch movies. So I'm not sure why we need a media room. I would just reiterate, no other peer community has a media room like this. Marshfield has a room with 25 seats. This room will have 60 anchored seats with a room for 20 more seats. So 80 versus 25 to me is, apples and oranges. It's not the same thing. So like I said, I'm not going to go through every room. I think everyone can look at all of the activities listed. And I think you just need to ask yourself, does this look like more than our seniors need to address their social and emotional well-being? And if it does, as I believe, then I think a smaller, less costly building is a viable alternative. Those are my comments.
Reactions? Comments, Brenda?
John, I think you're absolutely right that the building committee made clear to us that the design of the building was absolutely based on the programming they wanted to offer. They built it from that.
Yes.
Up based on the survey that they did and the long conversations they had with seniors here in town about what they were looking for. So the programming did determine the size.
No, I know that, but my issue is if we survey the parents in the town and they want 3 more athletic fields, I don't know, is that how we're going to proceed? Again, wants versus needs, right? We're spending a lot of money here. And we want them to have a new facility that does important things, so they can exercise and socialize and get important information. But in my opinion, just because they were asked what they want, doesn't mean as a committee, we can't say, that looks like a lot. Maybe too much. So I do agree 100% that this building was built based on the programming, and I'm saying the programming is too much.
So do you feel, I know you focused on the media room, I know that's come up before, but is that, I guess I'm asking, like, that's the
So-
room you would say is too much? I'm just thinking through, John.
I think we could go
The
through every
impact-
single group. So I'm gonna show you something which maybe you guys will think is silly, but I think is kind of representative. Can we go to page 36?
Okay, give me 1 second. That's right.
That's yes. Yep.
Clean arts, dirty arts.
Yes, thank you. So I'm gonna look at the cafe. This is the fourth largest area. Okay. I'm not gonna take these in order. So there's course check-in, registration. I suppose if you didn't want to bog down the check-in, the initial, you might set something up in there. I guess that makes sense. Enjoying food from the cafe, which seems pretty obvious. Waiting area. Okay, there is a waiting area right next to the entrance. Socializing makes sense. Lounging, okay. But there's these other activities, smoothies, coffee, drinks, sandwiches, soups and salads. Can somebody explain to me what that activity is? Enjoying food from cafe, I think kind of covers it. What I'm saying is you've got the fourth largest room, and if you don't have a lot of activities in there, maybe someone would question it. Like, that makes no sense.
Fair. I mean, I don't know that that's why, but I appreciate,
If there's a good explanation, I'm willing to listen to it.
it when we get to the comments, or the public, but. Yep, Tina.
I mean, I think the answer to that is that cafes or restaurants have large spaces with tables where you sit down and you enjoy, the food. So you need to sit at tables, people get together and meet there. So I think I get that listing out what the menu is as activities is a little confusing, but I think it's just sort of trying to show that there's going to be a lot of different options that you're going to be able to sit down and enjoy at tables in a cafe.
That is not how I interpreted it, but that's okay.
Yeah, Mary.
So everybody's kind of taken a look at this a different way. And I guess I looked at it and said, if this is the program, and I actually found that the sample schedule that was done was, I found that was most illustrative. And I think that some of these things that we're looking at from September and things have been refined. So that sample schedule is pretty good. I guess what I was looking at was to say, if this is the program, does the space match with the program? And so I'm taking it from a sort of a slightly different view. So, I looked at it from a couple of different ways. So we're 26,000 square feet. The programming space is increasing fourfold. Well, that kind of makes sense. The lounge space is increasing threefold. I think there are aspects of socialization and things that Brenda has written about that speak to the idea of some gathering spaces. The administrative space is increasing by 137%, which I'll maybe kind of get to. But speaking about kind of the programming piece, I started looking at it and saying, if you want to do all these programs, do you need 26,000 square feet to do it? Could you deliver this program? Do you need that footprint to do it? So I looked at it a couple ways. The first way I looked at it was to say the programming space and the space for the center has a capacity of 400 people at any time. Center's open 9 hours a day. So if you figure the average length of stay is three hours. Some will stay an hour, some will stay longer. That says that if you were full capacity, which you never would be, you'd have 1,200 people that you could accommodate during one day, or 6,000 people in a week. Okay, now that's 100%. You're never going to get to 100%. So let's say you want to get to 50%. That would be 3,000 people a week, or 600 a day. So then I start looking at the rooms and looking at the programs. And I think what I was kind of looking at was, I wasn't seeing that all of those spaces would be needed to support the program as it's put together. I think as John was seeing, I was seeing a lot of gaps in the sample schedule for the multi-purpose room. And I know it can be split in half, but there were some gaps there. I also looked in Marshfield, which seems to be the center that we are most kind of, comparing ourselves to. They have an average of 324 guests a day, and I think their max was a little under 400. Okay, so 400 a day. So we're proposing to build a center that could accommodate a whole lot more people than that. And if I did the math right, if we assume 324 guests a day, what that was telling me was that our center during the day would be about 27% occupied. And I think what I'm kind of wrestling with is, what is an appropriate utilization number? We're never going to get 100. We don't want to get 100. But should it be 50? If it's 27, if we have a facility that's built to accommodate 400 people at one time, and 1,200 during the day, and we have 300 to 400 people come in a day, do we consider that a success? And that's more a question, really, not a statement. I think the other thing that I would add is that as I was looking at the sample schedule, I was asking myself whether the intensity of some of the programming would be supported by demand. So in the weekly schedule, there's almost 20 hours for Bridgewater State lifelong learning and virtual classes. So do we think we're going to have enough activity for 20 hours or not? There's 8 hours of pet talks and documentaries. There's 10 hours for drawing, 10 hours for painting. So I'm just trying to get my head kind of similar to you, but I'm looking at it a different way. Of all these offerings are terrific, and we have a lot of individuals who want to experience the center in different ways. Can we deliver this? Does delivering this program need this amount of space? And as I was looking at the sample schedule, it struck me that a lot of the activities in the multipurpose room were monthly. And I found myself asking, how could that space be used? So I was kind of coming at it from a different place than you were, but questioning, do you really need, can you deliver this program? Is 26,000 feet necessary to deliver the program? I would just say one other thing. I know the administrative space has come up, and in the most recent presentation, it looks to me like we have offices, and I know we're building offices for positions we don't have yet. The administrative suite includes a project room, a conference room, and a shared work room. And then there's another multi-purpose room for a day program, which might be a new service that was offered. I'm trying to understand how, if our staffing is going to remain the same, why the administrative space would need to increase by a factor of that amount, particularly if we have meeting spaces in other parts of the center that are not fully scheduled. So, again, I'm looking and saying, how much space is needed to deliver the program? And I'm not convinced, looking at the information, that it's 26,000.
Yep, Brian.
Start out by reminding people who might have been on the call that we did about a month ago. When we went around the group of people, I didn't hear one individual who didn't acknowledge that the current senior center was inadequate. So this is not a binary stay in the senior center, or that's not what you've heard as being there. I think the concern is about size and cost. It is the largest, and on an inflation adjusted basis, the most expensive ever built in our peer towns. Proposed building is 5 times
I'm
larger.
sorry, and I'm not cutting you off right here, but can you stay to the programming and not the cost? That's all I'm asking.
I got very
We're gonna
little
do-
to say about the program, and
Yeah, no,
programming relates to the cost.
I know, but we're gonna do cost in another meeting. I'm not saying don't talk about it at all. I just,
Carol, I just said,
yep,
we're gonna do cost in the context of that cost and everything else in the town. This meeting on programming and utilization drives the size of the building, drives the cost. I don't see how we are addressing the size of the building and the cost of this building unrelated to programming. They're so intricately tied together.
I understand that. I didn't say we're not gonna do anything. I just don't wanna have it turn into just a cost conversation. That's all.
It's not going.
Okay,
It's very,
thanks, Brian.
very quickly.
No, not for us.
But obviously programming, I mean, this is like, I don't talk to architectural things. I can't speak to necessarily senior needs, one versus the next group, but I can do a really good job at looking at the context in terms of comparative town. I can do a very good job at putting this in context with the town's financial situation and the fact that we have many projects ahead of us, et cetera. And I'll stop there. But I will say, starting towards the utilization question, that 40 to 60% of that in the HCal's deck, only 40 to 60% supported any kind of a project. Fewer than 20% supported a new building. And I think that right there raises questions about the general level of support and likely utilization right there. Interestingly, they talked about affordability as being the number one concern. So I'm not going to belabor the cost tonight. Cost is part of the tax base. It's part of the affordability problem that seniors face. Call it the number one problem that they got other issues for the ability of young people to return to the town that they grew up in. We'll talk about that at another time. Currently, there are about 7,500 seniors. I can make a case that at least 1,500 of them, perhaps just a touch more, folks at Linden Ponds, folks in assisted living in Allerton House, folks at Tenement Hill, people who are homebound and unable to go out, etc. The operative audience for the HCal is something on the order, I would say, 6,000 people. Remember that only, and by the way, I have a document you're all welcome to, it shows the source material. Almost all of this comes from the sponsor. I have it here. You can source it from the town website eventually. But there are about 6,000 folks that are likely users of the HCal. There are 1,400 of them that shop at Linden Ponds. Only 10% of them, and I've got a table in there, come from Hingham. And what they lack is what they enjoy that the other remaining balance of the Linden Ponds residents don't experience is they have linkages to Hingham. So naturally, and we've got people in the audience enjoy, even though Linden Ponds has a full slate of the amenities offered at the HCal, it's a way for former folks that lived in the neighborhoods to come to the HCal and link up with their old neighbors. But it's not a full 7,500, it's the pertinent audience. And so counting all those folks, there's probably 1,500 you need to question in terms of utilizing the building. Now, I found some studies that showed that on average, typical daily usage for a senior center at this time is 2 to 4% of the senior population. Now, we requested town utilization figures 18 different times. Only 4 of them gave us an answer. But remarkably, okay, maybe not so. The 4-town average fell right in the middle of the range that I had suggested was normative for buildings of this type. The 4 responded that they averaged 3% daily utilization. When you translate that back to Hingham, 2.2 to 4% of 6,000 seniors would equate to 120 to 240 seniors a day on average using a new age count. That is far lower than what I understand to be the targeted 400 people that the sponsor expects to use the building. The implied utilization is 6.5%. And that's when you exclude the Linden Ponds folks. 6.5% compares with the norm of 2 to 4%, and the 3% that were averaged by the 4 towns that responded to it. That's a big assumption that is, I think, highly questionable. Now, I've wrestled with some of the things that got said. That remarkably, every one of the 18 towns, while they didn't give us the utilization data, every single one of them said that their centers were inadequately sized. That included centers that were built 3 years ago. And saying, how can this be? And I think the thing that squares the circle, so to speak, is that a number of years back, Elder Affairs, which is a state-sponsored advocacy group for seniors, came up with what they called guidance that centers should be 40 to 60,000 square feet. And that seems to inform a lot of the chatter that's taking place, not only here, but in neighboring peer communities. The fly in the ointment is that no centers of that size have been built, probably because of budgetary concerns, probably because the demonstrated utilization seen on the ground in towns around the state looks like more like 2 to 4%. So the average of the 4 towns that spoke to us about utilization was 3%. The assumption based on exclusion of the bonds folks is more like 6%. And that kind of encapsulates the concern I think we have. I don't think I have any question we need a bigger building, but I think it's large. It's very expensive. It's being built prospectively for about 36% more money than they paid in Marshfield when adjusted on an inflation adjusted basis for building materials. It's large and it's expensive. And in the context that we exist in here in Hingham, with $200 million in capital projects in the town warrant and $130 million in prospective debt exclusions, which is something approaching the combined debt exclusions that came out of Foster School and the Public Safety Center, there's a context here. And I think that's essentially what my concern is. And I think the utilization is the central part of the concern. Thanks.
Comments? Thank you.
I wasn't going to respond to Brian. I had my own comments. And I took this from kind of a different perspective. I've read all the information in the Dropbox, and it was really informative. I appreciated the document regarding the health statistics about Hingham seniors and remember the isolation we all felt during COVID and how much it has affected us. There's a lot of information there on the size of the building and the utilization of the population. Studies were interesting, and I really appreciate all the letters that we're getting from citizens. So I was trying to just look at it from a larger perspective than the detailed analysis that you all have been doing. And the existing senior center at 5,000 square feet is constrained by limited programming, participation, parking, and even basic measurement of demand. Because the facility is so small, we can't use it to demonstrate unmet demand through traditional scale comparisons. Because the building itself caps participation. So what we see today is not the absence of need, but suppressed demand. And that's demand constrained by space, scheduling, and parking. So this proposed 25,000 square foot building is intended to right size the facility so that participation, programming, and access can appropriately reflect the needs of our senior population over the long term. To me, this size addresses the fact that the existing facility is well below the functional minimum for a community like Hingham, and this building will allow us to continue to adapt for the future. So the real question to me is not whether this building is larger than average. It's whether it's appropriately sized for Hingham, a town with a large and growing senior population, high participation, and a long planning horizon. It allows us to make a single durable investment rather than a series of smaller expansions over time. And I say this all the time. The game is not played on paper. I don't think we can spreadsheet our way into an answer on this. So this building is almost the same size as Marshfield Senior Center, which we hold up as a gold standard of what a senior center should be. Marshfield and Hingham have very similar population size, and both have a growing population of vibrant 60+ seniors. So while this building is larger than many anticipated it would be, it's exactly in line with the kind of senior center that we admire in Marshfield and that we want to have in Hingham.
Thank you. Steve?
So my comments will be limited, but they'll somewhat relate to what John had to say and what Tina had to say. Let me just start with my written comments. My concerns and questions remain the same as when I spoke at the AdCom meeting December 16th. Expected usage, as we all know, drives footprint and planning for programming. I remain circumspect that the conclusions reached and expected usage will actually play out. The programming and design being an important term, drive the cost, and that concerns there. So I hope to learn a lot more from this discussion tonight, in the next 3 discussions. And I have read everything in Dropbox, and I hope to hear from the public. But if I could ask you, Carol, to pull up the 11/25, that is November 25th, 2025, building committee meeting deck. And while you're doing that, for background, when I spoke on December 16th, I did make reference to Marshfield in my words because the main comp. So the day before that meeting, I took a walk through Marshfield, and my comments when I came to that meeting were short, similarly sized. I think actually, I think Marshfield's 24,000, we're just under 26. I think we're actually a little bigger, not a little smaller. Details. But the question is, are we doing something similar? Page 16, please. Are we doing something similar to Marshfield? Are we kind of going 1 or 2 or 3 steps above? And just to kind of point out why some of my comments reflected that I thought what we were doing was more of a Cadillac compared to mid-level Oldsmobile is that when I saw this slide and I looked at this media room, I thought to myself, that thing's fantastic. And if we were spending other people's money and someone was privately funding this, that's an awesome room. But if we're spending our citizens' money, I question that, which leads to other similar questions in the proposed facility. That's what I have to say.
Okay, that's great. Other comments? Yes, Brenda.
Yeah, the utilization statistic that I care about is how will we provide a facility that will draw in a very large number of our seniors? Because I think that the design of the model of current sort of modern senior centers is to be a sort of a central place where people who have a range of needs over the course of the years from 60 to 100 can come and get them met and find and make connections. I go back to some of the first things that we heard about our senior population. One, that it's bigger already than all of our South Shore towns, so we would expect our building to be larger than all of the South Shore towns, period. It's also expected to continue to grow at a significant rate. Okay, so that sort of keeps supporting that. But things like 34% of our seniors live alone. So all of their meals are alone unless there's a cafe where they can come and hang out with a friend after class and have that social contact. The idea of this sort of multidimensional sort of service set is that it meets needs for socialization, needs for intellectual stimulation, meets needs for physical health and for wellness in general. And that all of those are necessary. And when you have them all in the same place, people, they build on what they knew they were interested in, and now they're new things they see and they add on to them. And again, you'd expect people's needs to change over a period of time. The health statistics that I put into the write-up that I did, I just think we really have to wrestle with. Our seniors are sicker than seniors in most other communities in all of Massachusetts. And again, benchmark towns, there's only one other benchmark town that has worse than the state average in terms of chronic diseases. That's Dedham. 5 of the towns are at the state average, and 12 of our benchmark towns are above the state average. So they're doing something. Their residents are getting something. Their health and wellness is being supported in some way that we are not currently doing. So we have this model that is the current model. I've lived through enough years of evolving models in my own field that, again, I can't tell you that this is going to be the be all and end all model forever, but it is the one that's currently available, and it's got a lot of statistics that support it, that this is what helps with wellness. So what I want is a center that we can get at least 50% of Hingham seniors participating in every year. I don't care how many are there in a day. I care how many show up for something every year, because that means we have designed something that responds to the full range of needs of all of our seniors. And what I see from the statistics that have been gathered by the HCAL folks as well as us is that centers which have a very wide range of programming, have multiple choices for classes, have multiple choices for intellectual things, multiple choices for social things, multiple choices for arts, multiple choices for fitness, are the places that people come to. And that it takes quite a bit of space to provide that range. So Marshfield is the one we're modeled on for obvious reasons from my point of view, because it's got 50 to 55% of its seniors showing up every year. That's a great statistic. That's the one I care about. And I don't see anywhere in the data that any of us have found a center that is significantly smaller than that gets that participation rate. So that's, to me, the one that grabs my attention.
Other comments? All right, so,
One quick follow-up.
please, sure.
Is there anything that can be drawn from the experience and the utilization in other towns? Because it seems to me that what you're arguing is that the observed utilization in other towns should not be referenced, because it could very well be true that we're creating a whole new model. And if we build it and do it right, we will find that 6% of the population is there on a regular basis, as opposed to 3% of Marshfield, 4% of Marshfield. I mean, all we have is context. We can look at utilization, we can look at building size. Building cost is no small matter in the context of town finance and the affordability problems cited by senior and young people. But is there nothing to be learned from the observed experience of surrounding towns? I think there is. And I think it's kind of adventurous to say we're blazing a path that hasn't been experienced elsewhere. But if we simply trust in ourselves that we're going to accomplish a goal that is a good goal, but it has to fit within the parameters of what we observe. I think it certainly needs to fit within town finance, because the number one concern that these seniors, I don't understand the healthcare problem, because, this becomes quite a wealthy town with lots of resources, lots of healthcare insurance. We do have an older than average population here in Hingham. But it seems to me that, not to give any reference and validity to, Marshfield was built 3 years ago, it was doubled 3 years ago. And it was doubled for 36% less money. It should be, their experience should be relevant and instructive, I should think. Now, one of the curious things about Marshfield is they are among the unit, it was perfect unanimity. Every one of our benchmark towns said our center was too small, including one that was built 36 months ago. And that's why I think the elder affair guidance is somewhat permeated the discussion about what's adequate and what's not adequate. But I don't know. The world I live in, it's great to blaze, new horizons and break through to great new things, but it can't be deemed irrelevant, the experience of other towns. And the cost can't be deemed irrelevant when the seniors themselves say that affordability is the number one problem we face. Thank you. Yeah.
Brendan, sorry. Thank you.
I think my point is that we are building on the experience of other towns. I mean, Marshfield is getting the statistics that I would like to see us get. And again, I understand your attempt to look at utilization in terms of actual bodies in space at any one time. I get that, but I'm not sure that that's the way to look at this. Because people's interests and participation will change over time. In addition to every center saying, that they have space challenges, we also got quite a bit of information that when new centers open and are enlarged, there is more participation. So I think it speaks to when there are more things offered, more people come. Everything from the folks that I know at Linden Ponds do go out to senior centers, but not to Hingham unless they happen to be connected to Hingham. Because why people would not be particularly enjoying coming to trying to get parking in this building. If you're coming for the first time. So people go to Marshfield, they go to Duxbury. So again, it's just, there is a need and we don't have a good way of demonstrating it per se. And I'm not sure that actual bodies in building per hour is the best way of looking at whether this programming will meet the needs of our seniors.
Just think you can make some big mistakes by building any kind of a building to the anomalous day when 1,000 people come in, or say they get tax advice. Because when a family buys a home, the question is how many kids, how many parents, grandma and grandpa are going to be here? When you build an office, you have to know how many people, families are in the seats, or at least eventually that's what it's done. And if you have a singular day or two where it's a vast outlier, you'd be building some pretty big buildings that most of the year would be empty.
Was that your experience going to Marshfield, that it looked empty?
It didn't say it looked empty.
Right, it doesn't look empty, at least when I
I mean,
visited.
to build to, 800 people a day, when they're averaging 4%, which is, I think, 380 people.
Well, their average was 300, so. 300
Same point.
people, 300 people.
Same point. Same point.
Again, I understand the percentage. I'm just saying that isn't how that building feels. It looks like it's well used. And I know the experience as a new person walking in is that people immediately recognized that I was new. They didn't know me. So they said hello. They asked, where are you going? Where do you want to go? And the only place where I felt it was actually fairly empty was the stairwell, because I used the stairs to get to the second floor. That didn't have people in it. That one I was by myself for those 20 stairs. But people were using that building. They were, they were sitting in the lounge at the entry and they were saying hello and they were making sure that I knew where I wanted, where they're trying to get to. So that's what I'm wishing for.
You reject the average daily utilization, the utility of that, but it is very consistent. I gave you the sources
I'm not disagreeing with the numbers. I'm just saying I don't think it's the metrics that make sense.
Middle of the grades that I gave you. So there are days, I'm sure, if David McCullough came back to give a lecture, they'd have unusually high usage back then. But, you know, there's context, there's the town budget, there's 130, 150 million projects and so forth. And this doesn't exist in a vacuum. And you're making assumptions that will lead to a much bigger building. And those 40 and 60,000 square foot buildings do not exist. For a very good reason. I'm building have to do with budget constraints and the utilization that's been actually observed. Because municipalities look at the context.
John?
I just wanted to say that my experience, I only went once to Marshfield together as our group. The upstairs was empty. There was no one in the fitness room. There was 3 or 4 gentlemen playing pool.
The fitness room was packed. They're having a fitness class.
No. The weight
Gym upstairs.
The gym upstairs, empty. The dance studio, empty. And then the room we sat in, obviously we were in there, but that was empty. And so the utilization, I wasn't able to work the numbers. And I'm gonna just sort of piggyback on Mary. I think her comments were more articulate. There's gonna be a lot of empty space. I can't give you the numbers, but I intuitively believe during the course of the day, there will be rooms that will be empty for, you know, periods of time, similar to the upstairs at Marshfield.
I didn't go when everybody else went. I went on my own to Marshfields. And when I was upstairs, the fitness room was being used, but there were gentlemen playing pool. And, you know, they were basically complaining, oh my God, we need so much space. We have so many guys that would be here playing pool if there was just more space. And I mean, to your point, there's going to be days where certain rooms are empty and whatnot, but I think that is just a microcosm of if there was more space or more programming, more people probably would be showing up.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
But that's one final question. I'll go quiet for the rest of the conversation.
Okay, Brian. Yep, you're done.
If all of these formulations, the way of thinking about the problem is true, why is this the biggest center observed in our peer town? Why don't we see in actuality 40 to 60,000 square foot for the elder repairs guidelines, which have existed for years? And I suspect there are reasons for that. My guess is it's budgetary, but yes, is part of it is people's formulation collectively, various towns, of the utilization question. But if this is universally true, and even Marshfield built the center 3 years ago for 36% less money, is saying that they need more space. It's just a puzzle to me.
I just, like a lot of people, I had just written a few things down, and I just wanted to just make a comment here about sort of the scale and utilization, because I just think it's worth mentioning. I think the reason that we're talking a lot about scale and utilization, and I know we're not talking about it tonight, but the decisions we make on this project affect other things.
Okay.
And I think one of the reasons that we're all kind of struggling with what is the right center that is appropriate to address the needs of our over 60 population. We also want to build what's necessary, because if we build what's necessary, that's one of the main levers that allows us to manage the costs and to continue addressing our competing priorities of time. So when Foster School was built, we said, there's an enrollment study. We're going to size this to 600 kids. That's what the enrollment study said. And that dictated the number of classrooms and how big the cafetorium was. It really worked out nicely. And absent something like that, I think we're all kind of trying to get our arms around this. We all agree that 5,000 square feet is inadequate. To Tina's point, you know, there are people who drive by, they see that the parking lot's full and they don't even come in. They don't even try. I also think it's important that we are I think another reason why we want to do this is to make sure that we're not putting unnecessary financial pressure on the very people we're trying to help. Right? We want to build what's right for this town, what works for this town, but nothing more, because of other competing demands, and because the population we are trying to serve has told us through surveys that economic security is the number one priority in Hingham. So I just thank you for letting me make that point.
That's great. So I'm gonna make a couple comments, not to wrap it up. I just want to respond to a few things I've heard. So mine is personal to me, and I would say, one, I love the information that we had the chance to read. I have no independent knowledge of the needs of seniors, personal, other than mine. But it's the fact that there is so much emphasis around on what that is, that whether it's the council, the annual report from the State's Council on Aging, the UMass study, there's just a lot going on that's focused on what we should be doing for today's seniors. And I don't pretend to understand all of it or retain all of it, but I do think there's a lot of good information out there that, and back to Brenda's point on, we're at the bottom bar working our way up. And it's pretty hard for me to go, I just want to be at the medium for taking care of our seniors. I want to be higher than that. We want better schools. I personally want, it doesn't need to be a Ferrari, but I might actually want a Cadillac. I think there's a lot of people that are facing challenges. I have the personal experience of people that are widows, they're living alone. That social challenge, it's tough. And I think there's a lot we can do for them. I don't know how that works inside the size of this building. I don't know, I will say on the media room, I would be going into town probably 3 times a month if they didn't schedule so many on Tuesday nights to a lifetime learning programs. And they're fantastic. And we're jammed into a room sitting on chairs like this. And it sells out every time. You're on a waiting. If you don't sign up the day that comes out, you're on a waiting list. I think there's a lot of demand for it, and we don't know. We just don't know is if we have people that can put on good programs, and that's all done by volunteers. I think I'm not saying that they'll all come, but we don't know that they won't, I guess is another way of looking at it. And then the last is sort of the practical one. I appreciate, I wish, talking to somebody who designs their own home. I'm always, I'm fascinated. I know I would be totally incapable of that. I would get overwhelmed by the decisions, but I love hearing someone's stories about how they built their home. And I hear here, and I hear from some in the public that, if they had the chance to design this, they would do it differently. They would, back to, they'd make it X% smaller. And I agree with some of that. I think the admin space is too big because I want those admins to be out and interacting with the people and, sitting in a room and having the conversations with the seniors. And if they need a meeting, there's always going to be a room available. But having said that, I just want to be aware that what's going to happen with this, ultimately where we are at, is that it's been designed by people. Our letters show a lot of support. We've gotten a few letters that don't. I know there's people out there anecdotally that don't, but that's not who we're hearing from. And if we sit here today and go, okay, I think it should be, Alan said, let's build Marshfield. So let's build 22,000 square feet.
24.
24. Okay. Well, and that is the hard part with all of this, right? That you do get different stats, where you look. And I'm gonna go back to the 22 only, Brenda, because I respect Jerry's point earlier on, but because it's 2 floors, you have, You now have elevators and stairs that you would, and a set of bathrooms upstairs, things you wouldn't have to have on one floor. But whatever number we pick, if we're not going way back down, and we're not gonna bother going, if we're not gonna stop this and build a place that's 10,000 square feet, but we're gonna build 24, we just have to recognize that's gonna be some period of time down. We're gonna have to spend another $2 million to redesign it, or whatever number, I don't know the number, but some number to redesign it. And run the risk, and again, I don't know this, but run a risk that it's gonna cost more, because that's what I think of, your point on bringing up Foster. We waited 4 years, my understanding is we waited 4 years to build Foster. And we ended up spending more money than if we had built it in year one and just done it on our own instead of waiting for the school. So it's a challenge, and that is probably one of mine when I look at it. I think the programming looks great. I appreciate that there will be some that will fail. I was fascinated that we had few letters that the ukuleles looks like it's got some traction. I'm all in on bridge and a couple of the card games, but I was really interested in that. But anyway, that's mine. I hear it. I understand that there are things we would do differently. I'm just concerned that what I hear as relatively small changes, and I don't mean that by belittling a 15% it came down 10%, another 15%, whatever that number would be in an ideal world. But if we're not going to go down, if we're not suggesting that we need to cut this in half, I don't know for sure what we're accomplishing. Responses.
Lynn has her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
There we go, Elaine. Can you unmute? Yep, thanks.
Hi. I appreciate everyone's comments and particularly yours, Carol. Thank you. I read most of what was in the Dropbox, and it taught me a lot. One of the things that I'm sure of is that these are appropriate programs for a terrific senior center. They're also very ambitious. So I believe that the plan is to build a senior center that's pretty forward-looking. Every room will not be filled at all times. One of the things that I found in the material that was mentioned several times was that these are very discrete spaces. So they did not want to have a situation where they had to reorganize the space in between each program. That was thought to take time away from professionals, working with seniors. And I agree. I'm sorry that we wouldn't have facility staff doing that kind of work and not the professionals. But I think one of the reasons that generates the size is ensuring that there's a space that's fairly discrete, so that spaces are not utilized for multi-purpose. Obviously, some of the spaces cannot be used for all things, the fitness room or the dirty art or, some of those activities, but some of them are, and the multi-purpose room could certainly be divided. A space that can be 60 could easily be used for 20 as well. But at the end of the day, it assumes that we're going to build up to pretty full utilization. And the material says not right away, that it will be open for a while, that it will not be a driver of increased cost, increased operating cost. But as it becomes more popular and more known, people will use it more, and those costs will come up, but they'll also be matched by grants and fees and so forth. So I'm optimistic, but I'm, like everyone, concerned about the total cost and whether our citizens, our voters, will be looking at the total cost more than the discrete pieces of this. And so that's a concern. I think the programming is appropriate. It matches my experience where I live and the senior centers that I've worked in. But it's ambitious, and we will not see it fill immediately. They say that in their own material, that it takes time and over time it grows, but it has to be there in order for the participation to grow. So it's a bit of a dilemma, how to go forward. But I think, Carol, your remarks about when to put this off until we got a right size or perhaps a more affordable size is very problematic. So.
Yes, I just wanted to respond or try to expand upon, what you said, Carol. If you cut it by 10 or 20, it's not gonna make a difference. We're not the sponsors. Sponsors chose to bring this to town meeting. We didn't decide that. Town meeting gets to vote it up or down. If it votes it up, done. Votes it down. I'm not sure that any of us know what the alternatives are. It may not be, oh, we'll just ask our architect to scale it down to 20%, and then we've just screwed ourselves because it's gonna cost the same or even more. Who knows? It could be at a different location. I mean, this has got to be among the most expensive locations. A quarter of the cost is site development. Have you gone over there and seen what they have to do? Go somewhere else, might not be like that. So I just don't know that that's the way people will think about what happens if not. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It's the unknown that gives me concern. That's it. I agree with you. I don't know where it would go or how.
So this may seem incongruous. I agree with all of you, and I think you're all right. And so what happens is that I come to this crossroads, and I think, okay, so we're reactionary, which is unfortunate, but that's what we are. So we really can't make any changes to the design. It is what it is, and it's moving forward. And I'll try to keep this within the spirit of utilization. So you can gavel me if I step outside the boundaries. I look at the spreadsheet, the utilization spreadsheet. There you go. I've used utilization.
Yeah.
And
You're covered. Go ahead.
And the fees, I look at the fees and I think, okay, would participation drop if intro to acrylic painting was $12 instead of 10? What about advanced acrylic painting? What about yoga? Instead of 5, it's now $6. So I take a look at those and I think I don't think participation would drop. And so why isn't some of that money then set aside? And that can help pay over the long term. And doesn't that alleviate a lot of these concerns here? And if that doesn't do it, then we can extend utilization nights and weekends. It can be rented. You have a fabulous asset here. It's not a school, right? It's not our fire station. It's not the police station. It's not this town hall. None of those buildings produce revenue. I'll end it there because it gets outside the scope.
No, but thank you. No, it's the point. And I'd add to that, and that's in what you do with out of town residents. If there's a different fee structure there, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yes.
And that was artful, because when you invite the gavel, you're not gonna get it. Very good move.
But I did bring it to this meeting. Any other comments?
I just want to say, I appreciate all the comments around the table, and there's a lot here to think about.
Yeah. Okay, we will open it up then to public comments. We have a couple on. Should I start? Dick, I'm sorry, I'm gonna leave you down to the end, because you've talked at a number of them, and I appreciate your comments, but we've gotten, you know, we've read your letters and.
Okay, but I could answer a lot of the questions that have been asked. I have a brother-in-law, for example, that lives in Marshfield and needed to use the exercise room. And maybe when that gentleman went in, there was nobody using it, but now you have to make an appointment. And they've discovered that that room is now too small. The demand is so great. So things change, things evolve. I think that a lot of people are making a lot of judgments based on a one-time visit to a senior center. I've been in senior centers for 20 years of my last life, the last 20 years of my life. And I've been in Marshfield, and I've been in Situate, and I know that the 16,000 square foot facility that they have now, they're sorry that they didn't build it larger. The 78 parking spaces that they have now, they have to have valet parking because they don't have adequate parking. I know that they have to use the dining room for the exercise room because the exercise room is now too small. There's a lot of things that go into this.
I respect
I'm
that.
sorry I spoke.
No, I was just gonna say, that was artful, well done. You got in there, I respect that, I really do, and I appreciate it, I do appreciate, and it, you know, I think that's, you know, that's fair, but there's still thoughtful comments, I think you know, there's thoughtful concerns, but anyway, why don't we? Okay, nope, same thing, sorry, Ness, I'll let you stay. Thank you for submitting your information, 3 minutes. Just loud enough so we can, can everybody on, Lane, can you hear?
I can speak really loudly.
Yeah, Lane, let us know if you have any trouble hearing people, please.
I'm very verbose.
I can-
not take, I hope you don't take offense. I'm not gonna be looking at you. I'm gonna be reading just to make sure I get it in 3 minutes. So appreciate you, sharing my memo. The core question tonight is whether the proposed size of the center is justified by realistic participation and programming needs. I've heard a reference to data that's suggesting that the support for the renovation or expansion varied, and that fewer respondents supported a standalone building. Respectfully, I think survey sentiments about a capital project should not be treated as a proxy for future participation levels. At the time of the survey, many residents were not fully aware of the scope of the proposal. Public education has expanded significantly since then, and the project will ultimately be decided through town meeting and at the ballot. That democratic process will determine the support. Utilization analysis, however, should be based on demographic data, peer patterns, and facility capacity. The key principle in evaluating utilization is this: participation reflects what a building can support, not simply how many people might want to participate. When a facility is space constrained, utilization data is capped by the building, not by demand. Hingham's current facility has limited ability to run concurrent programs. Rooms need to be turned over in order to be used for different programs, and there's no flexibility for scheduling growth. When we look at peer communities with modernized or standalone facilities, the consistent pattern is increased participation after expansion or renovation. Those communities commonly report serving roughly 45 to 55% of the 60+ population annually. Hingham currently serves approximately 15%, and even excluding Linden Ponds entirely, that figure only rises to 18%. The utilization assumption being discussed for Hingham fall within observed peer ranges, not above them, even excluding Linden Ponds. I've also heard comparisons suggesting the proposed facility may be larger or more expensive than its peers. It's important to note that several communities built facilities that later required expansion because they were undersized at the outset. Others continue operating with a constrained space and limited program growth. Building to documented need now avoids the inefficiency and added cost of future expansion. In addition, this project includes high fixed site costs, including the required removal of the decommissioned military structure and associated site preparation that are not directly comparable to the projects built on a clean or previously vacated sites. Finally, I understand the hesitation around including Linden Ponds residents in projections. While they have programming on site, many are longtime Hingham residents who continue to use the center and maintain social connections here in town. But for modeling purposes, I presented scenarios excluding Linden Ponds entirely, reflecting conservative estimates of expected demand. I applied the Massachusetts planning benchmark of the 4 to 6 square feet per senior to both current and projected demographics. Even under the most conservative assumptions, which excludes Linden Ponds, the resulting planned ranges materially exceed the capacity of our current facility and support the significantly larger building than what we have today. Those calculations are based on documented demographic trends. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you. Two things, Paul, can you, you know, in the upper right-hand corner, the view? Yep. Can you change that view to speaker? Just that might help. I know that they can't see, the room. I don't know if that works or not. I don't know how to fix that. So how about you go down, starting there, if you would let Hillary, because I think I can't read that far. Hillary speak. Okay, Hillary.
It is. Thank you for letting me speak. Let me get my avatar up here.
Your name and
my name is Hillary Hosmer. I live on 204 Linden Ponds Way. I've been impressed by the intelligence of the discussion. I am visiting an alternative location tomorrow, 225 Beale Street, and listening to the possibilities. There are different options that seem to be rejected in the plans. One is to continue using part of Town Hall for part of the senior program, for example, the Meals on Wheels, or using another facility such as 225 Beale Street temporarily. It's 25,000 square feet. It's conveniently located. It could be renovated inside. It does not need site preparation or water or sewer or parking. Although the parking might be whatever. So we talk about needing flexibility, not knowing what's going to happen in the future because there are so many possible variables. But I think we could be a little bit more flexible in our plans, allowing different options besides just one building at Bear Cove Park.
Hillary, thank you for your comments, but we are trying to stick to our topic tonight. That's not on the agenda, location. I'm
sorry, I was trying to say that utilization may vary, but if you choosing more varied locations could handle variations in utilization. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. If you go down, yep, there we go. Is that Gary? Yep. Gary, if you want to unmute yourself and give your name and address, please.
I am Gary Hansberger. I am at 121 Halsted Drive. If we're talking about utilization, if we are sticking to that, I am a 65-year-old senior, a retiree, and I will not be utilizing this facility as a matter of principle because I want that area to remain a park. So I will not set foot in it. So that's one person you can count out as utilizing this facility. And if the topic is size or cost of the facility, a 26,000 square foot facility at that location is 26,000 square feet too large. And I've already made my points in a letter to the committee, so I will stop there.
Thank you. Yep, please. It is it Elaine? Yep, Elaine, if you could.
Elaine Ward, 28 Lewis Court. I'm a board member of the Hingham Council on Aging. Thank you to all of the members of the advisory committee for all of the work you do. I would like to speak in strong support for the proposed Centre for Active Living, particularly in terms of meeting programming needs for our centre. I have lived in Hingham for more than 22 years and have volunteered in the schools and in sports over those years. With my daughters getting older, I want to continue to give back to Hingham through service on the Council on Aging. I've been on the board for 2 years. I'm a full professor with expertise in education, community engagement, and nonprofit leadership. I also serve on the Executive Board of Directors of United Way of Massachusetts Bay as chair of their Community Impact Committee. In both of these roles, I work with communities across the region. I collaborate with colleagues to lift up the benefits of hyper-local, place-based, and intergenerational programming for community members. An example of my work includes with a senior centre in one of the poorest communities in the state, where the median household income is around $60,000. That's $162,000 less than Hingham's median household income. That senior centre is a hub for the community, hosting meetings and events for seniors and the wider community, and is a buzzing hive of activity with numerous programs happening at the same time. For example, one of my most recent visits there, I was extremely impressed with the diverse array of programming. There was a large room with Tai Chi happening with over 40 people. There was 8 to 12 men playing pool in another place. Folks gathered in conversation spaces. The public health committee meeting that I was attending was in another room, and another group were in the kitchen preparing food to distribute to residents in need. I really envision this vibrancy and diversity of simultaneous programming for Hingham. But I juxtapose that experience in the under-resourced community I just shared with my experience with Hingham Centre for Active Living's programming and current limited capacity. I led the data collection process for our current strategic plan. And in the multiple interviews and conversations and focus groups that I held, residents shared how much they appreciated the services and programming offered by HCAL, but they also shared many concerns about the limitations of the centre, from not being able to access programming being offered because they couldn't either park or they were put on wait lists. And I've personally witnessed overcapacity in the building when we've had to move rooms during a meeting, or I myself couldn't get parking and had to park out on the main street. Diversity in programming is important to promote holistic well-being among seniors by addressing their evolving physical, cognitive, emotional, and social needs. A varied schedule incorporating fitness, education, arts, and social events combats isolation, boosts cognitive health, enhances physical mobility, and fosters a strong sense of community, purpose, and fulfillment. I truly get the challenges of the costs of living and the cost of construction for a new building. And while I myself am not eager to increase spending, I believe that the increase my family individually and the town collectively will pay for a new Centre for Active Living is an investment in the town that has given so much to me and to my family. I want to ensure that our seniors have access to the services, programming, and quality fit for purpose spaces that they deserve. I believe that the proposed Centre for Active Living is a vital resource for sustaining the health and well-being, not only for our over 60 residents, but as an asset for the community as a whole, for now and long into the future. And I encourage the advisory committee to support and prioritise the development of the new Centre for Active Living amongst all of the other initiatives on the warrant. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Let's go down to Dadeline there.
I don't seem to be able, well, there.
There you go.
I guess I can unmute myself. I'm Daveline Cooper, 1404 Tucker's Lane. I'm almost 72 years old. I've lived most of the last 35 years in Hingham. I pay taxes here. I don't even mind paying taxes because we have a wonderful community. I would like to get something more out of it since I've supported schools, although I don't have children. Each month, I carefully read the newsletter from the Senior Center, and I often find a few things I'd like to attend. Often when I try to register, those events are already filled up and I can't attend them. I think if we had a place with more space and perhaps even more programs, I might get a shot at actually attending things there. Additionally, I have serious mobility issues and parking is such that if I do manage to get into a program, I often cannot find a place to park, or I go an hour early and sit in my car until time to go. I really love my home in Hingham Woods. And I don't really feel like I should have to move to Linden Ponds to have social programs and services and events to attend. I'm somewhat envious of people who do live there. And I also don't think they're taxpayers anymore since they don't own their apartments. I'd much rather have those facilities available here. And I think it's past the time to be talking about a different place or all of those other things. It's time to actually build this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Devlin. Glenn? If you could, that gun's gone. No, he's not. There it is. Well, I'll get you next.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Glenn, if you could keep the comments on the topic, please.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I think it was Mary that said, asked the question, how much space is needed for the programming? And I think that's what you're trying to get at. And the two inputs to that I'm hearing are utilization and the distinction between wants and needs. The utilization is above my pay grade. I don't know how you will translate utilization into a different number than the 26,000. There may be a way that you can do that, but you should have a rationale for if something's 30% utilization, it means that we need to reduce by some amount of square footage. The second thing is on wants and needs. And as I look at the programming, I could very easily say it's all wants. I'm not sure what the needs are that are there. But given that it's all wants, doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad or that it's something that shouldn't be an integral part of your decision to what the size should be. Because once you decide what the size should be, then you can look and see what the cost is associated with that. But that's what's on the table for AdCom, is to decide what the size should be. And what I think you're going to use somehow is utilization and some distinction between wants and needs that you might all come to some consensus on. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, Glenn, I'm sorry. I'm going to bring you back. I don't think you gave your address when you spoke, name and address. Do you mind?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
4 Huckleberry Hill Lane.
Thank you.
I'm gonna take the left turn.
That's fine.
Anita Ryan, 37 Baker Hill Drive. Thank you so much for all your hard work and dedication to the town and letting me speak tonight. There were two sort of studies done as part of the senior center. There were the Center for Active Living. There was an outreach done in 2024 by the architect, but the numbers that were involved in that were so small, so I'm not really going to talk about it. I wanted to talk about utilization and programming. There's the 2022 study. But before I actually get there, the one point I wanted to discuss briefly is this idea of a growing demographic. Obviously, in our town, we're going to have a growing demographic. But just because we have a growing demographic doesn't mean each of those people wants to or will be utilizing a senior center. You heard one of them tonight. There are going to be people who will have no interest in this senior center. You're going to have people who want to go to the senior center every day. There is definitely a range, and I don't think we can say our population is going to be X in 2030. So we know we're going to have X demand because you're assuming that each senior wants to use it. When you look at the 2022 survey that was done by UMass as part of the study, only 5% of the population responded, about 1,000 people. But, you know, you learn some interesting information from that survey. And this was, again, 2022, so a couple of years after COVID. A vast majority of survey respondents, 91% said, do you know somebody living within 30 minutes of your home who you can rely on for help? 91% said yes. That's fabulous. That's a wonderful community that we built here. Frequency of social contact was asked. 89% have daily or weekly social contact with others in our community. That is fantastic. Another survey question was, for which of the following activities are there sufficient places in Hingham to engage? 61% said socializing or for leisure. There are sufficient places in Hingham in 2022, 61%. We are not in a community that has a crisis of loneliness. Are there people lonely? Absolutely. Are there people who are suicidal? Absolutely. But when you look at the survey response, it's not a systemic, widespread issue according to the survey responses. When you look at utilization, when they were asked in this 2022 survey, 18%, only 18% of residents between 60 and 69 had ever used the Center for Active Living. 18%. Now, granted, that increases widely to 42% by the time people are 80 and above. But the point being is there's a wide range of participation at these centers. One of the other questions was how often do you come to the Center for Active Living? 63% only visited a few times a year. Your Christmas lunch, your opening day of the Red Sox. 63% only chose to visit a few times a year. Well, 16% use it at least weekly. So there's a range of participation. I'm almost done. And then they asked, you know, why are you not attending the Hingham Center for Active Living? And again, there was a wide variety of reasons. It wasn't just parking. It wasn't just one thing. There were 17% that said, I'm not interested. There were 20, 21, and 23%, and that's between user and non-user, say, I participate in programs elsewhere. We don't know, does that mean I like to go to a paid gym that's nice, luxurious, and fancy? Or does that mean I go to Marshfield? Who knows? But there are people that have found needs elsewhere. There, you've got 30% of non-users that say, hey, I'm still working. You also have a percentage that said, I don't have time. Now, some of those reasons aren't going to change if you build a new building. Those people that don't have time then, they're not going to have necessarily time with the new building. The last thing I'll mention is one of the questions was asked, what do you want to see in terms of priorities? Which of the following? The two top items, the two top responses were day trips and excursions and outdoor fitness. Neither of those depend on a building. They're things that you do outside a building. Thank you for your time and thank you for your dedication.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Please, so I'm listening to everybody's comments and it's incredibly well made and well thought out, but it strikes me that perhaps I understand assigning value to considering the utilization of the new building and what percentage of the rooms will be utilized, which will be utilized, but it just strikes me that that can't be the driving factor, because if it were, we have a 5,000 square foot space right now that's fully utilized. And if utilization was the most important thing, then there'd be no reason to build a new building. Right? If that's the most important piece of all of that. So I guess I go back to what Brenda was saying, which is that we don't want to design a space that just accommodates the average. Because anytime there is a Christmas lunch or there is something where there's more than just the average number of people in the space, then the space isn't going to work. So I just wonder whether we're overemphasizing the utilization metric when we think about the size of the building. Thank you.
John, yeah,
It's the topic of the conversation today. I mean,
No, I know.
but that does, yeah.
and so it's not just utilization. Of course, it's not just utilization. There's a lot of factors, but tonight's topic was utilization and programming. And I know we've tried to keep it on topic and we've wandered a little bit. So I think that, I don't know, I question your emphasis on like, wow, this is, if this current senior center is at 100%, well, then why do we need a new one? Of course we need a new one. It's just a question of what size should it be.
No, I know, and I'm just saying if it's just, if utilization, I'm not saying it's not a factor. I'm just saying I don't think it's necessarily the most important factor. And so while it's a good topic to discuss because obviously everybody's done a lot of work on it, it just strikes me that it doesn't accommodate for some of the things that we all think are really important, which are the demographics, the increasing size of the elderly population in our town, I mean, where we're headed. I mean, it strikes me that that's not always, utilization isn't the most important factor in any of the other infrastructure projects that we do in town. That's not always the thing that we're focused on as being the most important aspect. That's my.
Well, isn't that what drove the school? The new Foster School, that it was the utilization of, Mary, you said something.
Enrollment. It's
Enrollment,
driven by enrollment.
which is the utilization of X amount of kids.
I mean, this really is the way buildings get sized. It's the way homes get bought with reference to family size. I had to take office space. The question was, how many employees am I gonna have? And how much space might they have? I don't know what the alternative is. I mean, taken to the extreme, you would size your building to the maximum observed usage. And that's in practice been found to be a very difficult financial proposition to do it that way. So my point earlier was simply you reference the observed utilization in peer towns with similar characteristics. You start there and you can make assumptions that your utilization will be 3 times what you've observed, but understand that you're making a big bet that when you build it, they will come. And I'm not sure that that's wise, particularly given the challenges we have ahead of us. I'll add one final thing, and I don't care, Carol is.
No, Brian, I haven't said anything.
There seems to be some confusion about Marshfield because Marshfield built its original building in 2002, 2003. And 19 years later, they found the building wanting and they doubled the size. And they doubled the size for cost that was 36% lower in cost per square foot than what's proposed in the new age count. And we've been told again and again that there are prohibitive diseconomies in doing an expansion. the economics can't make sense and you're gonna pay an enormous premium. They built that expansion, which doubled that building size. For cost per square foot, it's 36% less than what is proposed. Proposed ACL. So I don't know, I mean, we probably argue all night. How do you draw the line? Is it the maximum usage you'll ever observe? Can you afford to do that? And in my observation of what happened at Marshfield, it's not prohibitive to expand when things prove out. It's become sort of a given. People have accepted that because they've been told so many times there were diseconomies. But if you look at the numbers on Marshfield, cost per square foot, double the size, 36% less. So I'll leave it there.
Kevin, I don't know if this might be just some helpful background. I don't know if it's relevant, but when the town built the middle school, an enrollment study was done with the MSBA, and there were about 1,150 kids in the middle school. And when the new school was built, it was actually sized to a population of 1080. And that was because the middle school, or excuse me, the MSBA essentially said, we are building a school to last, Al knows this, we build schools to last 30, 50 years. So as we look at this, we see that there's this bump right now in the middle school. So we're not going to build to the peak. We're going to build to the 30-year average. So in fact, the first couple of years the middle school was open, ironically, it was a little bit over capacity. Now that enrollment has tapered off, but I guess the point would be that even the MSBA looks to size facilities based on an average as opposed to a peak. Again, I just maybe some food for thought.
Yeah, we'll take a couple more from the audience.
Hi, my name is Jean Silverio. I've lived at 6 Autumn Circle for more than 52 years. I'm on the COA board in the HCAL building committee. I've worked hard to make the new center a reality. Suffice it to say, I'm on a lot of committees, volunteer committees as you are, with the sole purpose of making the center the best it can be. You've heard all the data, the cost, the square foot, the location. I'm here to speak for personal experience with the programs and what the HCAL has meant to me and will continue. When I retired after teaching for 36 years, I took care of my granddaughter. She was my retirement package. When I went to school full-time, I said, now what? Since I worked full-time, I didn't have the luxury of lunch or other such activities with other women my age. I had teacher friends and high school friends, but not so many in-town friends to fill my day. I found out about the senior center, saw what it offered, and joined 14 years ago and never looked back. As Cicero once said, non nobis solum nati sumus, we are not born to be alone. With this in mind, there are so many benefits I've received from the center's programs. I've met new friends, I'm happier, I'm not lonely. My daughter is proud and happy that I have a place to go to with so many wonderful friends. She doesn't have to worry about me. When my husband was in hospice, many of these friends visited and brought me coffee and muffins. At that sad time, my son-in-law changed his work schedule to four 10-hour days to come to stay with my husband, Jean. I'm Jean. So I could go to exercise at the senior center and socialize with my friends. I also hired a nurse for 3 hours so I could go to exercise. I started a book club, which is still functioning after 10 years. We've read over 110 books. We had a wonderful Valentine's Day party today, again with a waiting list. I particularly love the Discovery Lifelong Learning Program. This program is an example of popular programs where seniors are placed on a waiting list. If they can't make it, they can't find a place to park. I have a sense of purpose, and I believe I've made a difference. We just don't want a new center. We need a new one. There are so many programs we can offer. A cafe for socializing, adult daycare, woodworking, bocce, pool, etc. Please don't let us down. We're worth it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Dick. We'll wrap it up.
Hopefully I can wrap it up.
3 minutes, Dick.
I'm Dick Pond. You all know me. I've been here many times. I've stood before you. I've talked, maybe too much. But I gotta get something straight.
I'm sorry, Dick, can you give your address?
I am now at 303 Linden Ponds Way, apartment number 307, Hingham, Mass. 02043. And I do pay taxes, regardless of what some people think. My fee for me and my wife is $5,700 a month. And in that amount is a certain amount, which I don't know how much, but it is for real estate taxes. I am a taxpayer. I have been a taxpayer for 50 years. I've paid for many schools. I've paid for police stations and fire stations, and I've supported them. But I just gotta tell you, even though I'm at Linden Ponds, I am faithful to my senior center. I was at the senior center this morning at 7:30 and talking about the staff having to get their rooms arranged. The instructors also have to get their rooms arranged. So I have an 8:30 class, which I teach Mahjong with my wife. But I showed up at 7:30 this morning so I could rearrange the furniture to fit my group into the little room that I'm allotted for my Mahjong lessons. I was there from 8:30 until 10. My wife joined me. We both taught a class. We're in the 5th week of 7 weeks. They want me to come back and teach another class, which I will do. I was at the Valentine's lunch, for which I paid $5 for it was very nice, but it was a little teeny sandwich. We pay every program we're in, we pay for. I teach Mahjong and I charge $30 for 7 weeks. 15 of that goes for a card and 15 goes to the senior center, and I volunteer my time very, very happily. I just can't say enough about how much we need a center, and we need a center of the size that's being proposed, 26,000 square feet. If we try to do something smaller, 10 years from now, we're going to be sorry. We're going to enlarge it, and we're going to pay a lot more money than what we're paying now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, sure. 2 minutes.
I wanted to do 2 minutes. Joshua Roth, 125 Wampatuck Road. So Brian, when you said it's 36% more, are you taking into account the site costs that Marshfield didn't have to pay when they expanded?
No, I didn't, because that's a choice you made. I was doing it.
I'm just asking. Just wanted to, but
it's still dollars to the taxpayer.
I know, but if we're comparing apples to apples,
no, we're not. I vigorously disagree with that.
It was just a clarification.
That is part of the cost. And one might argue, and we're not here tonight to talk location.
I know. But they paid for their original cost in 2003, paid for the site cost, right? They just built up.
Say again?
When Marshfield built in 2003, their original site, that's when they paid their site costs, right?
I think if you heard what I was trying to say was, we've been told again and again that an expansion is prohibitive. And what I said was that the expansion they did, the dollars out of pocket cost per square foot were 37% fewer, less than what's
but I agree. I disagree. I think it's not comparing apples to apples when we talk about site costs of a new building compared to an expansion that's going up. But I just wanted to
see, we looked at Situate, we looked at Wellesley.
Right.
They're all recent builds. They were all less. They were adjusted for building materials inflation too, because the first look we did, we used consumer price inflation. Point was made, well, building materials went up more, so we did the work. And it was true in all the recent new builds.
Okay, I just, all right, what I wanted to bring up is that recently there's been, it was mentioned at one meeting a few months ago that they didn't think, you guys didn't think that folks from 60 to 70 would use the building.
I never said that.
No, I, not you, someone said it in one of these meetings. Recently there's been a group that was formed organically of folks who have recently retired. And they're in that 60 to 70 group, and they have met a few times over the last 6 weeks, and they're all, within a year or two retiring, all within that 60 to 70 group. And admittedly, I think 80% of the folks who've met have never stepped foot into the center. But the interesting thing that I think that we don't talk about is that when we look at that age group, they're not only going to be participants, they will be the volunteers that are used to staff the building. They will be teachers who want to teach, because the resonating thing that we've gotten from this group is that they just want to give back. They have all this knowledge. They have offered to volunteer at different organizations throughout the area, and they've been denied for whatever purposes. And so I think there's a real opportunity that isn't counted in all this utilization stuff of volunteers who will find a place in the building, as well as potential folks in that 60 to 70 age group who are looking to give back, who could potentially teach. The other thing is, I'll say real quick, is that this new building will provide an opportunity for more tax work-off program positions, which in town there's a waiting list. There's not enough opportunities for folks to work off the tax work-off program. This building will provide an opportunity for that. Thank you.
Just to be clear, I never questioned 60.
No, you didn't. Someone on this, it was brought up at one of these meetings. I can't remember who said that 60 to 70.
And we did count those for utilization purposes.
I know we count them, but it was said that they didn't think that the 60 to 70-year-old cohort would come to this building. I'm not saying it was you. Someone did say it. I just wanted to bring up that there is a group that is willing to, do more than just be a member. They're willing to participate and utilize the building on a different level that we're not counting. That's all. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you. I think we're gonna is there any wrap-up comments by anybody on the committee? And if not, we'll move on. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're gonna move on to our second agenda item. The first two, AA and I, are not available, can't be heard tonight. So we're gonna move to L, the transfer harbor revenues, municipal waterways improvement and maintenance. And that is Ted.
Here. Okay, Article L is the transfer harbor revenues to municipal waterways improvement and maintenance funds. And it's asking, this is a perennial article, will the town vote to appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money, which sum was generated from fees paid to the town of Hingham during fiscal year 26, any parking license for the purpose of accessing slips or moorings, and revenues generated by the harbor master's office and or boat exercise taxes for deposit to the town's municipal waterways improvement and maintenance fund to be used in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40, subsection 5G, or acts on anything relating thereto. basically, it's interesting. We don't have all of the funds available yet. It comes over kind of in staggering amounts. For example, it's probably getting, no, where is it? Like each year where it talks about like the 350,000 per year that pays for Article 6, and some of that goes to capital outlay. Some of like the mooring fees, for example, haven't come in yet. So like year to date, there was like 30,000, but we expect about like 40,000. So I don't know. It was just an interesting thing that I learned as far as the timing of some of these payments. But long story short, the current balance in the fund is about $1.5 million. And again, it comes in from like 5 different sources of revenue, if you want to look at it that way. Again, like slips and moorings, which is about $40,000. And then there's late fees and fines, which could generally be about 20,000. Although this year it might be trending higher toward 30. Then some of the boat excise taxes, about 15 grand. Can go to like capital outlay and other things, but there's shellfish permits, dinghy and dock fees, and all sorts of other things that kind of contribute to this fund, which I just found interesting because I had no idea that was a thing. That said, any questions before I read the recommendation? I know kind of all over the place, Tina.
I discussed this at length last year, and I'm just surprised you're only interested in it now.
Well, yeah, it's because yeah. Maybe I missed that meeting. I apologize if I was there.
She's gonna check the minutes.
I know.
Looking it up, Ted.
All right, fair enough. Hold me accountable. Well, it is recommended that the town vote to appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of money which sum was generated from fees paid to the town of Hingham during fiscal year 26, including all revenue from any parking license for the purpose of accessing slips or moorings, approximately $40,000. All revenue is generated by the harbor master's office, including mooring, docking permit, late fees, and boating fines, approximately $25,000. And the remaining 50% of boat excise taxes, approximately $25,000 from local receipts, for deposit into the town's municipal waterways improvement and maintenance fund to be used in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40, subsection 5G.
Second.
Gonna have to go around the room. Dave?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mary? Aye. Tina?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Michael? Kevin?
Aye.
How you doing?
Ted?
Aye.
Thanks for coming tonight. And
Kevin, should I want to utilize your.
Yes.
Brenda? Alan?
Aye.
Elaine?
Aye.
Thank you. Can I go back and start
Yeah,
another question? Yeah.
How much is coming out of the waterways fund to pay for salaries this year? Just, the hope was to keep building this fund up, but we also keep taking money out of it.
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm not sure what the exact number for salaries is.
It's a chunk of money.
But I know some of it was like, I know there were like a couple, if Ken Corson, I think they brought in like 4 guys that are only gonna be doing the pump outs and some of the lesser jobs. I think that was covering some of their.
I think his salary is coming.
In his own, yes.
Okay, thanks, we just.
There was 196, but I don't know.
Yeah, most of that's
Okay.
last salary.
Okay.
I think they're probably similar.
Yeah, salary, yeah. So we make progress, obviously, still, but it's slower than originally hoped. So.
Remind me, do we have any of these minutes? I'm sorry, I didn't go back. to check.
Yeah, we did those,
No, we did
those, and no.
Okay, fine. So. Any comments from the public on items not on the agenda? Hearing none. Housekeeping, we got, sorry. Look at, yeah, I've heard about that strategy. Seeing that. Sorry.
37 Baker Hill Drive. I have a question about your minutes, because you've approved a lot of minutes and they're not available on the website.
I could address some of those.
Please.
So we just did a whole bunch of minutes that are posted as of last week, and there should be more minutes on there by early next week or whenever they get a chance to post them. I am behind on the minutes, if that answers your question, but we're current as of let's see, yeah, call it the 13th of January with the rest of January to come, well, after we get back from school vacation.
Amazing, appreciate it, thank you.
Housekeeping is just a reminder, we're not meeting next week, and I will send out, I got an update on the select board's agenda, or meetings, and so I'll share that tomorrow. I'll send that out. But you know, a few things got pushed out a little, disappointingly. They're not going to be heard on the 17th. They're moving to the 24th. So once again, I'm gonna put some things, see if we can pull anything into the 17th. Or sorry, not the 17th, but the 24th, while they're hearing the other ones too. So moving around a little bit, but just please take a look at it when it comes out, because we'll have to move a few things that we don't want to hear before they do. I think there's some we can, but there's some that we cannot. So yes, Brenda.
Does that mean there's room on the 24th to do discussion number 2 about HCAL, which is the operating costs and revenues?
Let me look at that tomorrow, and I will get back to you, but I would say probably yes. Between in that week, the 24th to the 25th, I think, but let me
And would you create another Dropbox folder for us? We have some materials, as people may remember, from Jen Young that we got right before the December 16th meeting. But Mary was busy on the snow day, and turns out Jen Young was working from home on the snow day. So Mary sent me some questions. I sent them to Jen. We got the answers back right away. So we actually have some other data about how the revenues for the current HCAL come in, where they come from. So we'll provide that.
sounds good. I will think about that.
Carol, do you know is the joint CPC session still scheduled for the 24th, or is that? Okay.
Nope, that didn't move. None of our joint sessions. That didn't move. The day we're having the school didn't move. I think what did was the healthcare. I think has moved out, and it might be the transfer fee. It might be the two that moved. But I'll have to go back and look. It wasn't a lot, but I had a few that were tentative, and they've moved around a little bit, and it may not have that big an impact. I'm just saying we've got some movement, so please do.
We stand on bringing the reliability project to the, I think discussion that they are still on the 24th. HMO.
Yes, that one has not moved. Yeah. So I will get that out. That is all I have. Yes, Steve.
So you can reflect on the fact that you're not going to see each other for 12 days. I don't know if that's good or bad, how you feel about it.
You can still get together.
That's that, right. We'll have, yeah, exactly.
Wait till March.
Yeah.
You again?
Thank you all very much. I really did.
Nice job.
I feel like it was a good conversation. I think we need to hear what we're thinking about, and it's great. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody taking the time, obviously, for spending the time in the Dropbox. And for those of you who've read all of the letters, don't be, well, what are you gonna do with your time now? I've got more letters, so. I am.
Letters.
I love the letter.
Yeah, I love the letters, and there's been really some great stuff in it, so I know I'm being silly, but my point is that that I'm now gonna go back and rename them for putting a date, that's saying letters as of 2/12, and then letters post 2/12, I'll keep in the folder name. So if you have read all the prior letters, you'll know where to go for the new ones.
I even read the transcript, and I was shocked to see my name in there.
There you go.
I have no idea what the discussion was, because this is the very beginning of the transcript, and that went into the article.
That was the
It's good.
article before.
Yeah.
You'll go back and look for it. So that's all I have. Thank you all very much.
What's your adjourn?
Second.
Dave? John?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mary? Aye. Tina? Aye. Mike? Brian?
Aye.
Michael? What's his name? Kevin? Ted?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Brenda? Aye. Alan? Elaine?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.